This is Frontline on Air. Major stories on the go.
India's record heat wave vows to return. Can we survive the next? The country just emerged from the longest ever heat wave in its recorded history, and the forecasts for the future are alarming. Action is overdue. Divya Gandhi.
In June this year, northern India turned into a dystopian nightmare. First, hundreds of fruit bats dropped dead from trees as the mercury touched 45 degrees Celsius in Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, giving rise to fears that the animals could spread disease. Then, in Jharkhand, a troop of over 30 thirsty monkeys jumped into a well and drowned. A similar fate struck a pack of jackals in the state. The heat wave that seared through parts of the country had ratcheted up temperatures, with Delhi recording nearly 50 degrees Celsius on May 29th. The human cost of the heat wave this summer has been devastating. As many as 143 people died across the country, and 41,789 people suffered from suspected heat stroke between March 1st and June 20th, according to the Union Ministry of Health. The worst hit were the poor, who live in ill-ventilated homes with no cooling appliances. Street vendors who work outdoors for an average of nearly 12 hours a day were particularly vulnerable to dehydration, heat exhaustion, and fatal heat strokes, according to a Greenpeace India National Hawkers Federation survey of 721 street vendors in Delhi between April and May this year. Dr. Ajay Chauhan, Professor of Internal Medicine at Delhi's Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, said that he had never seen so many patients of heat stroke in such a short period of time. In June, no fewer than 75 patients came in with symptoms of heat stroke, out of whom 27 died. Heat stroke signs. Deconstructing the heat stroke, Dr. Chauhan said, quote, "There are two kinds. Classical, that involves comorbidities and affects pregnant women, people on certain medication, and the elderly. And exertional, which involves heat generated from within the body. This year, there has been an overwhelming number of people with exertional heat strokes. Fruit vendors, factory workers, labourers, those who had to continue working despite the weather." Unquote. A doctor needs a combination of three factors in order to diagnose a patient with heat stroke, he told Frontline. One is an alteration in consciousness. Two, a body temperature higher than 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40.5 degrees Celsius. And three, a history of exposure to heat stress. When the core body temperature rises, the heart races and produces other symptoms such as headaches and nausea, delirium, and seizures. Heat waves impact every human organ, from the brain to the heart, intestines, kidneys, liver, lungs, and the pancreas, according to a paper published this year in Environment International, which studied data from several cities, including Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi, and Varanasi. Environment International is a peer-reviewed scientific journal covering environmental science and health. This year's heat wave has been the longest ever since meteorological records were maintained in the country. It was experienced for about 24 days in different parts of the country, according to Mrityunjay Mohapatra, head of the Indian Meteorological Department. The IMD declares a heat wave when the maximum temperature reaches 40 degrees Celsius in the plains and 30 degrees Celsius in hilly terrain. This is not the first time the country has been hit by heat waves, but they have been increasing in frequency, according to the Environment International paper. There was a severe 2-week heat wave in May 1998, the worst in 50 years. In April 1999, temperatures rose to 40 degrees Celsius. In 2003, there were more than 3,000 heat-related deaths in Andhra Pradesh. In May 2010, as many as 1,300 died in Ahmedabad. Then heat waves occurred in rapid succession in 2016, 2018, 2019, 2022, and 2023. What is a heat wave? What is the anatomy of a heat wave? What are the meteorological phenomena that make it form? Can we authoritatively link it to climate change? are fatal extreme weather events, or EWEs, projected to increase in the future in India. Speaking to Frontline, Madhavan Nair Rajivan, former Secretary of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, said, quote, "Heat waves are associated with high pressure or anticyclonic flow in the middle atmosphere, about 3 to 7 kilometers, which causes a downward motion of air, that is, subsidence. This downward motion causes the air below to get compressed and heat up. However, many local factors such as lack of rain, depleted soil moisture, and urban landscapes also add to the genesis of heat waves. El Niño also has an important role to play in the genesis of heat waves over India. We see that heat wave frequency is greater in a year following an El Niño year. Last year was an El Niño year." Unquote. The intricate interplay between EWEs in the marine, atmospheric, and terrestrial environments has been the subject of study for Roxy Matthew Cole of the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Pune. He told Frontline, quote, "Marine heat waves, or extreme ocean temperatures, can indeed alter weather systems." Unquote. At the National Symposium on Understanding the Science of Heat Waves under the Warming Scenario and Challenges Ahead, held in March 2024, Cole said that he observed that, quote, "an increasing number of marine heat waves in the Bay of Bengal, riding on a rapid ocean warming, are energizing tropical cyclones and driving intense heat over the Indo-Pak region." Unquote. Indian Ocean to get warmer. As for the future, owing to mid to high greenhouse gas emissions, the Indian Ocean will very likely experience surface warming of 1.4 to 3 degrees Celsius between 2020 and 2100, according to Cole and co-authors in a chapter of The Indian Ocean and Its Role in the Global Climate System, published in 2024. Their forecast is based on climate model simulations from global agencies. They added, quote, "Marine heat waves are projected to increase from 20 days per year during 1970 to 2000 to 220 to 250 days per year, pushing the tropical Indian Ocean into a basin-wide, near-permanent heat wave state by the end of the 21st century." Unquote. He also alluded to a dire future prognosis. Quote, "Terrestrial heat waves are projected to increase 6-fold in this region if emissions are to continue. This raises concerns for the vulnerable population that is projected to reach 1 billion by 2050. Unquote. In fact, by the end of the 21st century, the frequency of summer, that is April to June heat waves over India, is projected to be 3 to 4 times higher compared with the 1976 to 2005 baseline period, according to the Ministry of Earth Sciences Assessment of Climate Change over the Indian Region, 2020. Weighing in on the association between heat waves and global climate change, Rajivan said, quote, "Even though the heat wave is a natural process, human-induced climate change is making it more frequent, longer, and stronger. Past observations suggested that the frequency, duration, and intensity of heat waves are increasing in India, and climate change or global warming could be contributing to this observed trend." Unquote. More heat waves likely to occur in India. There is an increasing trend in the frequency and intensity of heat waves across India, according to a 2024 paper published in Climate Dynamics by Rajiv Chattopadhyay of IMD Pune and others. They said, quote, "This is consistent with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC 5th Assessment Report, AR5, which stated some time back that an increase in frequency, duration, and intensity of heat waves will be very likely over most land areas well into the future." Unquote. The authors added, quote, "The humidity-driven, moist heat stress conditions are showing an increasing trend over the Indian region, especially in the eastern coastal states, which cause discomfort." Unquote. In the country's urban areas, the effects of a heat wave on the human body can be heightened by the heat island effect, where the urban microclimate is made hostile by shrinking green cover and increasing heat-absorbing surfaces. A case in point is Bengaluru, India's garden city, which saw record-breaking high temperatures and a severe water crisis this summer. In a 2023 paper published in Advances in Environmental and Engineering Research, T.V. Ramachandra of the Centre for Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science, IISc Bengaluru, said, quote, "The increase in paved surfaces and the reduction in green spaces have contributed to the urban heat island effect in Bengaluru, with increased land surface temperature, that is LST, from 33.07 degrees Celsius to 41.14 degrees Celsius in urban areas of March to May from 1992 to 2017. Unquote. Bengaluru, from green paradise to concrete jungle. The built-up area in Bengaluru went from about 8% in 1973 to 86.6% in 2023, with a concurrent decrease in green cover and water bodies. Tirthankar Banerjee, an assistant professor at the Institute of Environment and Sustainable Development, Banaras Hindu University, said, quote, "The urban microclimate is regulated by green space, urban growth, albedo, that is, fraction of light reflected, and other ancillary parameters. Warmer temperatures caused by urban heat islands exert additional heat stress and potentially interact with heat waves to exacerbate mortality or morbidity risk." Unquote. A study of the deadly 2022 heatwave in India and Pakistan, published in Environmental Research Climate in 2023, categorically states that, quote, "Human-caused climate change made this heatwave about 1 degree Celsius hotter and 30 times more likely in the current 2022 climate as compared to the 1.2 degrees Celsius cooler pre-industrial climate." Unquote. On the future, the paper states, rather ominously, quote, "Under a future global warming of 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, heat waves like this are expected to become even more common, 2 to 20 times more likely, and hotter by up to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to now." Unquote. Co-author Krishna Achyutarao, a professor at IIT Delhi, told Frontline, quote, "India is a hot country that has regions where every summer temperatures for a few days are high enough to be termed heat waves. However, due to global warming, increases in temperature into heatwave conditions are now more frequent in these regions, lasting for more days. Regions that did not previously experience heat waves have the phenomenon occurring. Therefore, we can expect heatwave conditions more frequently. Before the rise in human-caused warming, heat waves would happen once in a few years. But now, with climate change, it appears to be occurring nearly every year." Unquote. Extreme weather events. Heat waves are not the only fatal EWEs that have begun to ravage India with increasing frequency. In a 2021 paper in Weather and Climate Extremes, co-authored by Rajivan, scientists analyzed mortalities from floods, tropical cyclones, cold waves, lightning strikes, and heat waves in the country over a 50-year period. Using data from the IMD from 1970 to 2019, they found that the number of each of these EWEs, except cyclones, has increased significantly. As for mortality, they said, quote, "The maximum mortalities reported in the last decade were 49% due to floods, followed by 24% due to heat waves." Unquote. The warming of the Indian Ocean and more frequent El Niño events may lead to more frequent and longer heatwave episodes over India in the future, the paper warned. The authors said, quote, "In India, among the major states, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Kerala and Maharashtra were found to be having maximum mortality rates due to EWEs in the last 2 decades, and thus there is a need to consider these states with priority for developing disaster management action plans." Unquote. There are murmurs of a heating nation in the behavior of wildlife too. Birds that inhabit tropical montane forests in the eastern Himalaya are shifting their ranges to higher elevations rapidly, quote, "with strong evidence that such upslope shifts are a result of rising temperatures globally," unquote, according to a paper published in 2023 in Global Ecology and Conservation. The paper was authored by scientists from the Centre for Ecological Sciences, IISc. The scientists used mist nets made of nylon and strung between two poles to capture and ring the birds and then studied them over a period of 10 years. This study of as many as 61 insectivorous bird species, including the long-tailed broadbill, lesser racket-tailed drongo, the grey-throated babbler, and yellow-throated fulvetta, revealed that the birds had moved to higher altitudes primarily because of logging and climate change. Species in danger. Speaking to Frontline, Umesh Srinivasan, co-author of the paper, said, quote, "Climate change will lead to species shifting their ranges upwards until they run out of space and ultimately go extinct. This has already happened in other mountain ranges and is commonly called the escalator to extinction. When species move up, they can either move into undisturbed or disturbed forest. Populations that move up into disturbed forest are much less likely to be viable than populations that move into undisturbed forest. Climate change and deforestation, therefore, can combine to have serious impacts on biodiversity." Unquote. Meanwhile, the future of our environment appears bleak to none other than scientists from the IPCC. A survey by The Guardian of nearly 400 IPCC scientists, published in May 2024, reflected deep pessimism about the future of the planet. Almost 80% expected a temperature rise in this century of at least 2.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, shooting past the international target of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Many saw a semi-dystopian future, quote, with famines, conflicts, and mass migration, driven by heat waves, wildfires, floods, and storms of an intensity and frequency far beyond those that have already struck. Unquote. The survey also prompted responses from several prominent climate figures. One solemn message came from the official spokesperson for UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. He said, quote, "The battle to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius alive will be won or lost in the 2020s, under the watch of political and industry leaders today. They need to realize we are on the verge of the abyss. The science is clear, and so are the world's scientists. The stakes for all humanity could not be higher." Unquote. And India's humanity could not be more vulnerable.
Voice by Rakesh Sharma, Timber Media. This is Frontline on Air. Major stories on the go.